To the Twins press conference.
Shortstop Carlos Correa to a 6-year guaranteed contract that will keep Carlos in Minnesota through at least the 2028 season, and an opportunity to keep him here much longer. To my left, I want to make some introductions here. Twins Executive Chair Joe Pohlad, Twins President of Baseball Operations Derek Falvey, the man himself, Carlos Correa, and Carlos's agent, Scott Boras. We'll hear from Derek first, followed by Carlos, and then we'll open it up for questions. With that, I'll pass it over to Derek Falvey.
Thanks, Dustin. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Obviously on an exceptional day for the Minnesota Twins franchise, for Carlos, for his family, for everyone here. Before I get to a few comments, I do want to acknowledge a few people who are here. Right in this front row, we've got Carlos, his mom and dad who are here. Obviously Daniela, Kylo, and the newest Twins fan that will be born here in the next few months as well. Carlos's sister here, and then Carlos's mother and father-in-law, as well as his friend Martin Fox and Luis Garcia, and certainly Scott Boras, his representative. So just want to acknowledge, thank you for being here. And we welcomed you into the Twins family last March and in through the season, but a chance to now extend that partnership, that family going forward. So thank you all for spending your time coming here. I want to also acknowledge, obviously, and thank Scott Boras. You know, this doesn't happen. Scott, we've been through a few rounds on this one, going back to last year, through this offseason, through a unique process. Without the trust, respect, and admiration for his representation and what we can do collectively to work together to partner, these things don't happen. And so, Scott, I just want to thank you for the work you put into this and the trust you've put in us and our organization and how we've navigated. I want to thank our whole baseball operations crew, certainly for Thad, my partner in this, Rocco as well, for the leadership of all of our baseball crew coming up with creative solutions to navigate this. There's been a ton of work going into that. And ultimately, I want to thank the man to my right and the Pohlad family and ownership. You know, through a process like this, it can be long, it can be arduous, sometimes longer and more arduous than you expect from the start of free agency and through it all. This would not happen here today without the support of Joe, without the leadership, without the steadiness and the patience of what he showed and his family showed through this process that ultimately got us to a tremendous day here today that brings us back together and shows how committed they are to this team, our fans, and everyone in this community and how we're going to go forward and win. And then lastly, to Carlos, to Daniela, Kylo, as we said, this is about you, right? This is about your home. This is about your family. This is about you being a big part of the Minnesota Twins for hopefully the rest of your career. That's our view of this. And you know, as I went back and thought about what I said last March when we brought you into the organization, I went back and looked at those notes, and I remember I was talking about the back of the baseball card. You know, we're talking about All-Star, World Series champion, Platinum Glove. And then we talked a little bit about leadership and teammate and who he is on the field and who he is behind the scenes. And it was all things that we had heard about Carlos through others, all the work that we had done. And our baseball ops crew and everyone around it and our scouts and everyone, they did a great job in that, but I actually think we were light. I think we were light on the impact that Carlos could make on and off the field in this community with his teammates, with his staff, with his coaches, with all of us in this organization. And so when we got to the end of the season, we made no secret of the fact that this was about finding a way to get Carlos Correa back to the Minnesota Twins. Obviously, the journey through that process led to some different outcomes along the way. No hiding from that. And when I had a conversation, ultimately when I thought at one point, at one juncture, Carlos was going to end up in a different direction, I remember calling you late that night and wishing him so well. And it was an emotional conversation. It was a heartfelt conversation on both sides. And the thing that I took away from that conversation was how much of his heart was here, how much of him he invested in this organization, how much he cared about us as a group. And ultimately, what's transpired from that point forward is well documented, and I won't go through that part of it. But sometimes in baseball, as in life and everywhere else, fate and destiny come back together, and there's an opportunity that you don't always expect. The journeys are not always linear. They're circuitous sometimes, but they're here, and they bring us back together to the place where we knew was always right for Carlos. Minnesota was always right for you and your family, and we hope that you saw us as right for you, and I believe that happened here today. So with that, I'll pause. We're gonna throw on a jersey here, see how he looks in these new threads, and thank you, Carlos. Thank you. clean. There they are.
This is a fashion show 2.0.
Yeah.
Everybody's thinking it, but I'll say it. That looks pretty good.
All right. Sit down.
Now we'll hear from Carlos.
I wanna thank the Minnesota Twins organization. I want to thank the Pollard family for making this possible. Derek, Thad, and everybody involved. Like you said, last year when I came in, I felt welcome right away from the get-go. I felt like I was part of a family. So throughout the whole process, to be able to communicate with you guys, talk to all my teammates. Communicate through the whole process, talking to Boxer almost every day, talking to Miranda and all the guys. Definitely, like you said, my heart was here. So I'm happy we got this done, and I want to thank you guys for that. I want to thank my wife because you're my support system throughout the whole process. You were there for me the whole time, knowing that everything was going to be all right and God was going to put us in the right place. I want to thank my son because these few months. For always making sure I had good grades. So you always told me going to a draft, you need to have leverage, you need to have good grades so you go to a good college. Thank you guys for all the sacrifices. I want to thank my mother and father-in-law because throughout the whole season, you guys are with us, supporting me, supporting Daniela, helping us with Kylo and our future son, Kenzo. I want to thank you guys for all the time you invest in our family and all the help you guys, you help us with. I want to thank my team. Fox, Papo, all the guys that work with me to make sure that I show up every single day and I'm ready to compete at a high level. I want to thank my agent, the best agent in the game. It's called Boras and the Boras Corporation. It was a lot of challenges thrown at us throughout the whole process, but at the end of the day, he got me to a place where I'm happy, where I feel right at home, where I feel like I'm going to have a chance to win every single year, where we have a really good core of players. And I'm thankful for sticking with me throughout this whole process. I know it was probably the hardest job you ever had to do. But, we talked every day, and I felt comfort every time I spoke with you. And, I'm happy. I'm happy to be here in Minnesota. I'm happy to be a Twin. We started something special last year. And there's some more work to be done. At the end of the day, we want to bring a championship back to the city, and that's what we're going to work for from now on.
Thank you, Carlos. At this point, we're going to open it up to questions. John Shipley.
Well, I might as well start with you, Joe. First person that Derek thanked was you. This is your first big moment as the franchise. How do you feel right now? What does this mean to the organization?
Yeah, quite the first 6 weeks on the job. I'm thrilled to have. I think we're all thrilled. Like everybody, I'm thrilled to have Carlos here. And I think your question was, what does it mean to have Carlos a part of the Twins family? I think we're here to win, and Carlos is a huge piece to that. And so we are collectively trying to get better and better. And so when we looked at going into the off season, we wanted Carlos to be a part of that, and so that's part of the goal. And so ultimately, we landed in a great spot.
Dan Hayes.
Hey, Carlos. There's been so many things you've had to wrap your head around this last month, where you might live, new teammates, new league, new ballpark, all that stuff. What's that experience been like, and especially as you're sitting here today?
Yeah, it was not what we expected going to the off season. Traveling around the United States and going to different parts and getting the whole process done. But we stayed true to the process. I never forgot that I was a father, and I was not gonna let that affect me at home. So I kept my spirits up throughout the whole time. I was enjoying my time with my wife, my son. I kept working out and staying ready. So the whole process was crazy, but the end game was great. I'm happy where I'm at right now, and I'm excited that I finally get back to work. I know where I'm gonna be for a long time, and I can help lead this group of young men to where we want to get.
Over here, Phil.
Carlos, from your point of view, what happened with the Giants? What happened with the Mets? And ultimately, how did things change and bring you back here?
Yeah, you know, one thing I learned throughout the whole process was that doctors have a difference of opinions. I had a lot of doctors tell me that I was fine. I had a lot of doctors. I have some doctors that said, you know, it wasn't so fine. It was shocking to me because since I had the surgery, I never missed a game. I never got in treatment in my ankle. My ankles never hurt. So you know, when the news came, it was a little shocking. But I'm ready. You know, I'm in my mind with the expertise of some doctors, named doctors like Dr. Elitrash telling me that, you know, the ankle is great. It's in great shape. Dr. Kemp here telling me that I'm in outstanding shape, even better than last year. He told me so. That mentally going to next season for the rest of my career, I'm gonna treat it like I've always treated, just going to compete every single day, give my everything out there on the field, and help my organization win championships.
Betsy.
Hey, I guess this is for maybe Derek and Scott, maybe Carlos too, but can you take us through the last 72 hours or so and how this deal came together?
Derek,
you can jump in, Scott, but I would say, you know, it was a unique 72 hours, but it's really been a long journey through the entirety of the offseason. For us, you know, we looked at it as we started the offseason conversations with him, obviously had some parameters discussed at that time. As things progressed through the offseason, we knew this could take some time, right? Carlos is one of the best players in the game. He's going to have a lot of choices. We were not naive to that, and certainly he continued to have many choices. But we never lost touch. We never didn't stay in touch, and when things, as Carlos just mentioned, have changed through the course of his journey, Scott was great about keeping in touch with us ultimately as things changed. And as we got to learn more and as we got to dig deeper, the goal at that point was to try and find a way to bring Carlos back and to try to find a way to create structures, contractually and otherwise, that would match a lot of the things that they were looking for that would also work on this end. So, you know, as I sit here today, I'm excited about not just the next 6 years with Carlos, the next 10 years, which is what we set out to do right from the outset. It's structured in that way, it's built that way, and we partnered on what that could look like. But that's, we cement Carlos as part of that core in our minds for as long as possible.
First of all, Joe and Pohlad family want to thank you and Derek and Thad and the Twins organization, because it's been a very cooperative process. Free agency is, you know, Carlos and Daniela, they gave me a narrow list, and Minnesota was always on it. And that sounds like an easy process, but it's a difficult process. And certainly Carlos's experiences here were so welcomed. And the other thing that Carlos knew was that the Twins has this juggernaut of young talent that Carlos, as you know, is the assistant general manager of the Twins as well as being a player. And so his evaluation skills, which are frankly quite extraordinary, knowing the character of the players, he had a vision that Minnesota was definitely a place that he could achieve all of his career goals. When you have physicians that are functional and practicing orthopedists who know players, and the benefit of the Twins was, and we should all reach out to Dr. Chris Camp, who has been throughout this process, maybe the most understood physician of Carlos, because he got a chance to spend a full year with him, examine him before the season, during the season, after the season, and make assessments and do things. And that, I think, was paramount to making great decisions about what the organization should do and the benefit of what Carlos can provide to the winning culture that the Pohlad family wants for the Twins. And I think having that base, it gave Derek and I a very sound foundation to work from. And it gave us a clarity that most organizations did not enjoy. where they did not have the information and the depth of understanding of who Carlos was and what his true medical status was. We're not here to fault exterior physicians and their opinions, but I will say that medicine, and particularly in sport, orthopedic functionality and clinical exam on a day-to-day basis is far more important than an MRI. And I think that foundation and understanding that the Twins organization and us agree upon as to Carlos, and that really allowed the theater for us to put together a fair and equitable contract, put together something that really will allow him to be here for potentially 11 years and be a $300 million player for the Twins when you can consider last year as well. And to do that, you have to have ownership, you have to have very astute executives, you have to have a medical team so that the foundations and the trust of this come together. And that's really was the format. And I will say this, that Derek did not let notice go. He was constantly in communication, constantly calling, because I think they knew, they're the organization that truly knew the leadership value in addition to the skill and what he could mean to a franchise. And Derek, I really appreciate that persistence. That was not easy in the face of a lot of things, and I thank you for doing that.
Megan.
Hi, Carlos. Good to see you. I'm curious, you kind of touched on this a little, but how did you weather just the emotional ups and downs of the last couple of months? Like not thinking you weren't going to be back with the Twins, having these other two deals with teams I'm sure you were excited about fall through, and then ultimately landing back here. It's just a lot mentally, so I'm curious how you were able to kind of persevere through all of that.
Yeah, it was definitely an emotional roller coaster, but as you know me very well by covering me every single day, I focus on the things that I can control. And some of these things I had no control over them. So I was not stressing over it too much, just for the simple fact that I could not control their decisions and what some other doctors say. What I can control is prepare my body every single day to compete every single day, to show up every single day, to help my team win. Those are the things that I can control, and I stress about that. And as you know, I take really good care of my body. I'm very disciplined when it comes to my preparation in season and the off season. So those are the things that I stress about. The things that I can control, I let them up to this man, and he always did what's best for me and my family, and I'm always gonna appreciate Scott's work because it was a thing of beauty.
Doe.
Derek, to get here, two other teams decided that that their risk tolerance wouldn't, that based on their risk tolerance, they